Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Three Guys with Glasses Between Two Plastic Plants. I'm Robert Wilonsky, the Communications Director here at Heritage Auctions, and I am thrilled to be joined, as I always am, for the discussion about the state of the international numismatics market by Cris Bierrenbach, Executive Vice President of International Numismatics, and Sam Spiegel, who is the Director of the International Coins Department. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you. You've never done one of these in person before.
I have not. First time.
You've always been in some far-flung place and too busy to actually deign us with your presence. But nevertheless, you are real, you are here, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. And if you're watching us recorded on YouTube, thanks for watching us. But if you are, in fact, watching us live, you can, of course, ask questions to Sam and Cris as the course of this conversation takes place. As we have discovered throughout the course of doing these for the last year or so, people have many questions. And if you would like to remain anonymous, email those questions to tommyn@ha.com. And Tommy, who's directing this behind the scenes, will feed us the questions over the course of the next 45 minutes or hour or 5 hours or however long we're here. But I believe we did one of these last in June, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
I think that's when we cut you an $800 check for a toy you were broke in your office.
That's right.
So that's how I mark dates now, by when I've broken something that belongs to one of the members of the executive team.
Okay.
So that's been since June. And obviously there has been a significant number of auctions and a significant number of significant sales since then. And I guess we should start there because obviously we're here to discuss the state of the market, what it's been like and what we can look forward to. And coming off the World's Fair of Money, as we just did, certainly there's a lot to discuss there. But Sam, I think you wanted to start with June in Hong Kong, if I'm not mistaken. That was right after our last discussion.
Right. So the last discussion we had, we spent a little time talking about highlights that were going to be in that June Hong Kong auction. So I thought it might make the most sense to start there, with all the updates that have happened since that last discussion. So June Hong Kong was a week or so afterwards, and that was just a tremendous successful sale by pretty much any metric that you could take. And it was by far our most successful Hong Kong event ever. So that was a venue that we started in December 2015. That's when we had the first Hong Kong auction.
What led to that starting that 6 years ago?
Expansion into Asia.
Yeah.
You know, we met an extraordinary person there, Kenneth Young, who's our director now, and IT, who works with him. And we had been interested in venturing to China and Hong Kong for years prior. We were just sort of hoping and waiting to find the right person. And Sam and I visited the year prior to so we were there December 2014. And then we took that year to prepare to open the office and to launch our Hong Kong venue, which started for Asian coins and Asian currency in December 2015, as Sam just said, and has steadily grown since.
Yeah, so that first auction, December 2015, coins and currency combined was about 2.8 million in total, which we thought was fantastic at the time. I mean,
Sure.
We were, jumping in with joy because that was as good as we could have hoped at that time. And since then, we have two auctions a year in June and December in Hong Kong, and we've just been focused on growing every time. You know, the goal is always just do better than we did last time. So more lots, higher value, more clients, more consigners, all that. And it was growing very steadily. And then it seems like this past June, we sort of finally hit our stride, and it turned into our first 8-figure event. So it was $10.8 million between coins and currency that we sold in the June 2021 event, which was fantastic.
So what do you think accounts for that steady, if not really enormous growth, certainly in the last couple of years? Certainly we'll talk about some significant coins that were in that auction, but is there something you can point to that says this is a good reason for that growth and that expansion in that market?
It's essentially Asian clients becoming accustomed to us, meeting us, seeing our resources, our platform, seeing how wide and global our audience is, and getting to know us and becoming more comfortable and steadily doing more and more business. It's sort of it's like you building a pyramid, right? I mean, you build upon your foundation and you keep going. We're very sensitive to everything that we do in Hong Kong. It's difficult for us. It's been difficult actually since for a few years now, where we have, there is tariffs and sort of bureaucracies that we have to fulfill. And but despite of all that, we kept pushing. Despite of COVID, we've kept pushing. I've been personally very happy with the way we've gone there. And the more auctions we have, the more people they come and meet us and attend the auctions either in person in Hong Kong or online, and that sort of creates a positive effect.
Right, because every time, it's interesting. Every time we do one of these discussions, there's always a question or two from the viewing audience about tariffs, about the sort of machinations of dealing with the Hong Kong market in these particular auctions. Is that something people have just gotten used to and better understand, which leads to that success?
It's basically because Sam has really gotten really good at figuring out the most efficient, effective way to present our business. Yeah. So either if it's through temporary export licenses or all the regulations that we have to follow over time, he has been really successful in figuring out exactly how to do it best and how to do it best for our clients, so our clients can do business comfortably and making sure that everything is correct and everything's by the book. That's important to us.
Yeah, the thing about Heritage is pretty much all of our categories get centralized through Dallas. All lots get processed through Dallas. So even though the consigners might be in Asia and the buyers might be in Asia, the lots still need to come to Dallas for photography and cataloging and getting processed and all of that. So it's navigating those bureaucracies, trying to figure out how can we do that within the framework of these tariffs without having to pay the 7.5% tariff just to process it for a month in Dallas before we ship it back to Asia.
And also keeping the schedule all at the same time.
Right.
As you know, we are a factory of auctions, so our dates and our schedules are very, very tight. So we need to make sure it's extra. But we believe it's eventually going to move towards more of an open business. We hope with COVID, after COVID, that it opens up again. We're able to go back to Hong Kong. We haven't been there since December 2019.
Well, that was my next question: is how has your inability to actually get there impacted your ability to do what you need to do there?
It certainly impacts us. I mean, inability to visit anywhere for us has been difficult. I mean, we travel constantly to Europe and to Asia to do business, but it's mostly, we can't see our friends and our colleagues and our, a lot of agents and dealers and collectors that do business with us, that we had to move to do it virtually, which works, but there is no substitute to in person, particularly with non-American consigners. They really like to see you, have a cup of tea with you, and we like that too. So,
and I would like to go with you the next time.
Yeah, well,
I think it would help me better understand this conversation.
Sure.
Okay.
I'm just throwing it out there.
Though that was probably the main concern, just talking more globally, not specific to Hong Kong. That was probably the main concern we had when COVID started, is not being able to travel because, we're on the road probably a third of the time, in either domestically or internationally. But it really hasn't impacted our business as much as we thought it would. Obviously, this is a banner year for us and, across all categories. But I think one of the main reasons that we've been able to navigate the COVID climate is having offices in different cities around the country and around the world, because we've been able to sort of direct clients to drop their material off at one of these other offices or ship to one of those other offices if they're more comfortable that way, whatever reason it might be. And that's enabled us to keep the supply chain going, both consignments and material coming into Dallas for auction, and then also delivering purchases to clients elsewhere, which is something that we instituted earlier this year. We now have the ability to deliver purchases to clients, at least in coins, through the European office, which is not something that we were able to offer previously. So if any clients are in Europe and would prefer to import their material into the Netherlands office, either because there's lower import VAT or they're more comfortable that way or whatever it might be, we can do that and then deliver it either in person or ship it from the Netherlands office to them, which just sort of lowers the barrier to doing business. It makes it much easier to do business with us if you can sort of if you're in Europe, you can do business with essentially another European company rather than with the US company.
I know we're going to talk a little bit, a lot actually, about the August Platinum Night in Signature Auction. But while we're on Hong Kong, let's keep with Hong Kong and kind of go through that, because I would like to talk about some of the top results and if they took you by surprise. As you well know, I'm not going to try to pronounce some of the coins because, frankly, I'm born and raised in Texas, and English is barely my first language. So what were some of the surprises for you in that June auction? Did anything jump out at you and go, this exceeded our expectations and then some?
Well, yeah, I would say the majority of lots, if not the vast majority,
Really?
sold for over our high estimate, which, we can talk about a little more later. But, the top lot was a Kwangtung specimen dollar in specimen 67, which is it's a beautiful coin, fantastic grade, very rare. I think the estimate on that coin, if I recall, was around 300,000 or thereabouts, and it wound up selling for 576 all in. That was just a really surprising result, because you knew it was going to be a strong result, but selling over $500,000 was sort of, took us by surprise, I would say.
So to what do you account the success of that coin?
The market in general, the numismatic market across the board has been very strong, but the Chinese market in particular has just sort of grown by leaps and bounds in the past 18 months or so, where you have stuff doubling or tripling in value, or in some cases maybe even more.
Yeah, we're seeing newer, advanced collectors come in very quickly, and particularly with this coin that we were just looking at before. And I think this is happening across the board, not only with Chinese. The ultra high quality material is really demanding extraordinary prices. So when you're seeing things that are in population reports, the top of the population reports, and really outstanding coins like that, where it's a 67 with that beautiful toning, those coins are demanding significant premiums like we haven't seen before. We see amazing premiums for small difference in condition for American coins. We see them all the time, right?
That was my very next question about how
and
do we
this
compare
seems to be, yes, so this seems to be sort of catching on, which is sort of an advancement of the collecting culture, which is really a shift from collecting rarities to also collecting, or more importantly, collecting condition rarities. So every coin is rare, and Sam's going to show some examples here what we're talking about. And so every coin is rare at certain levels of quality. So that's what people are being able to they're being able to take the information that we provide them on the website, the great amount of information and relevant information that we provide, and find out for themselves that those are conditioned rarities, and then the result is just higher prices.
Right.
Okay. So,
well, it sort of dovetails with the conversation I had with Bob Simpson last year, which is about he wanted to collect the best looking version of that coin. It may not have been the highest grade, but it was the best looking version as far as he was concerned. That's the thing that attracted him. I assume that is now bled over to the world and ancient market as well, that mentality, right?
Yeah, and when we get to talking about the August auction, there's a good example that I want to bring up where, eye appeal accounts for much more than just the pure numerical grade on the holder. The one thing I would add to what Chris was saying, what collectors are looking for, in addition to sort of the top quality and the nicest coins, is iconic types. What you're seeing, the iconic types, the sort of traditional type coins.
Trophies.
That trophies that might not necessarily be the rarest coins in a particular series, but they're sort of, the most iconic, is what's drawing a lot of attention. So the other coin I wanted to bring up from the Hong Kong auction was the long whiskered pattern. Mm-hmm. Which, if Tommy could bring that up on the screen that would be helpful because, so yeah,
That's it.
that's a sort of a classic example of, or a classic example of one of the great Chinese pattern dollars. It's the sort of coin that shows up for auction every, maybe once or twice a year somewhere in the world. So it's not like it's a once in a generation offering or anything. In fact, we have one for sale in the December Hong Kong auction.
If you want to cut to me, I actually am holding it.
There it is.
Yeah, long whiskered pattern.
Proof 63. This one is a white coin as opposed to toned as the previous one that we sold.
Yeah, so the one we had in the June auction was a 63, and the last time we sold one of that specific variety, because there's, I think, 2 or 3 different, minor varieties of this pattern type, was in April 2014, where we sold an MS61 for just over $75,000. And in June, we had a 63 sell for $552,000. So 7 years later, and a 2-point grade difference means it's worth, 5 times as much or more,
8 times.
8 times as much, which I think is just a sort of fantastic representation of where the market's going. It's emphasizing condition and these iconic types.
So what does the success of this particular auction mean for the upcoming ones?
So what we've decided to do, and we just sent an email about this, I guess, yesterday, is add our Platinum Night brand to the December Hong Kong auction. So as most of our listeners are probably familiar with, our Platinum Nights are designed for the best material available in the market, right? We just had a major Platinum Night event 2 weeks ago as part of our August auction, and we have found great success with them in our domestic U.S. coin auctions, and now we're expanding that onto
Let
the
me see
December.
that. I'm going to show it on this camera. There you go.
Yeah, the December Hong Kong auction is now going to have up.
Gonna look like that. Yeah, with all the. It's essentially only advanced coins. Coins that say they're around $5,000 or higher. And every coin gets its own half page or full page in the catalog. It's really the premier session that we have for advanced collectors.
Right.
And we'll be we'll have our first one. We'll host our first
Thank
one
you.
in Hong Kong coming up.
All right, let's go from Hong Kong to the the World's Fair of Money, the ANA convention that just happened a few weeks ago. Certainly across the board, there was a significant. It did about 68 million combined world and ancient and U.S. coins. Some records set in the American coins. Talk to me about the success you had there. Certainly, I believe this is the first coin show post-COVID. Not even post-COVID, mid-COVID. I mean.
Correct.
It was the first major show.
Yeah, the first major show. We were really happy to be there in person.
In Chicago?
In Chicago.
Right after the
and
National, we just been there for the sports, right?
Correct.
Same place.
The week after, the same place in Rosemont near the airport. We really didn't know what was going to be like.
What was it like?
It was great. We didn't have obviously a great participation from collectors, but the floor was full. It was active. There was a lot of business being done. We got reports from our friends. We saw a bunch of our friends that we hadn't seen in a couple of years. People that we used to see every month, very close with. So that was great. Some people that I hadn't seen in the several years were there.
Yeah.
I felt safe at the place, at the convention center. The ANA did a good job separating the tables and keeping everybody spread apart. But there were, hundreds of people there every day. We had lots of lot viewers that came in to view the coins. It was slightly different this time around because we had lot viewing during the show, and then we had the auction the week after, which was new. And I think it worked out really well because people had the chance to view and then go back to their business on the boards and not be sort of distracted with all the auctions going on.
Do you foresee that being the way it takes place from here on out, regardless of conditions?
In certain venues, I believe so.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still, New York in 2022 in January that we have coming up. We'll still have the auction physically at
Okay.
the convention or at the hotel
Right.
in New York City.
But it's not going to be during the show
Yeah.
itself. We'll have our platinum night beforehand and then the signature portion.
Correct, and their usual format. But I do believe that for our bidders seem to like more this format where they have a break,
Right.
and they can work on their bids without rush. And I think, and I really liked the format. I really liked the results from our NA sale for our consigners. I thought was incredible. It was the first time we had a signature type auction run by the computer instead of a live auctioneer.
Right.
And I loved it because when the computer's running, we have the countdown in the button, and the countdown in the button is great. I really like it. And when it's a live auctioneer, you don't really get that great bidding trigger that is the countdown. So we were happy with the format. We expect that will continue.
Well, I think it's interesting, right? In the middle of what's been a really hot market. I mean, we've talked about this for the last year. We've been doing these, right? Every time we do one, coins keep increasing in price. New collectors keep entering the market. And I sort of, I saw this firsthand at the sports card convention, the sports memorabilia convention. It was packed with people who were itching to get out and itching
Right.
to see people and itching to hold things and to see things in person for the first time. And I assume that was sort of the vibe there as well. People really wanted to, and I assume that there's also discussion about what are you seeing in the market that you can't have when you're, hundreds or thousands of miles away from each other.
Yeah. So I think the difference with the National was that there was probably more retail traffic, collectors at the National, which, as Chris was saying, there were numerous collectors who were not attending, but it was a very brisk and robust dealer-to-dealer business, and some higher-end collectors and individuals were there. I think what I was seeing was that dealers especially were hungry to buy whatever they could, because as we've been saying, it's the past 12 or 18 months, the market has been so hot. They've been selling into this, but without being able to travel much, especially internationally in our end of the world, they haven't been able to replenish their inventory very well. So
Right.
The first time you have a major show, dealers come with what they have. They just will buy whatever they can to replenish their inventory because they have cash sitting on hand from everything they've sold over the last 18 months and low inventories.
So where did you see the greatest success during the ANA and during the World's Fair month? Tell me about certainly with the Cape Coral Collection was amongst the significant sales, but certainly I got an email from you repeatedly throughout the auctions that a particular collection had exceeded expectations. They seem to come in regularly during the auction. So walk me through it.
Yeah, again, for us, I was pretty optimistic about the sale, and it exceeded my expectations by probably 30%. We had 3 collections that were wonderful. Again, the Cape Coral Collection, which this particular installment of the Cape Coral Collection featured his Latino, his Latin American selections, and I thought that Mexico in particular for this collection was exceptional.
Of course, I open it right to Guatemala.
That's okay.
All right.
And Guatemala also. I mean, if you want to, Sam is going to talk about a coin from Guatemala in a second, but the Mexican coins, really high end again, really choice items, great type coins. The collector, who's a great friend of ours, was very happy. We had dinner with him at the ANA. That was great. And so that was a great success, as were the 2 other collections that we had. And
Monaco.
We had the Monaco Collection, which, Sam, if you want
to. The Monaco Collection was a group of very advanced, mostly Roman gold coins.
I like these Roman Imperials. I was a big fan of those.
Yeah, that's, it was put together over a relatively short period of time, but just focused on rarity and condition. And we were very pleased with how it turned out. And then the other standalone collection was the WTR Collection, which was a group of Spanish and Latin American gold coins. There were some ancients as well in the Platinum Knight and Signature auction, but we pulled out all the Spanish and Latin American gold coins for that sale, which was, a nice compliment to Cape Coral.
Yeah. A lot of people talk about prices as a measure of success of an auction, but we look at other metrics.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that.
And the one thing that I can mention about this sale is like it was one of the slowest paced sales we've ever had.
Yes,
I
watched.
Where we were selling, 10 years ago, we sold $150, $160 an hour. Okay. And now we're selling for this, particularly for this section, we were selling about 45 to 50 lots an hour. And that basically is in my opinion, a great measure of success, because what was happening is that we're getting multiple bidders on every lot.
Right.
So if you have multiple bidders on every lot, and we have a rule that after the last bid, the lot has to stay open a minimum of 15, 20 seconds, that's going to get extended, right? And so that's one measure. The other is the activity, the action that it have. How many bids do we have per lot? And all these things for this sale that we had at the ANA were off the charts, unusually high, more bidders per lot than usual, more bids per lot than usual. All these things were sort of converging, and it has to do with continuing factors that, there's lack of supply in the market. There is a great number of new people coming in, which is, I don't think we've seen at this level. People who are legitimately interested. They're not speculators. They're not sort of investors. They want to know, and they ask right questions.
Well, so you point to something that I wanted to ask you about, which is, are the questions you're getting about the coins different in the last year? Are you being asked about the rarity? Are you being asked about the provenance, about the minting of these particular coins? And, certainly it seems to me throughout our 40 plus categories that people really are coming in wanting to know more about what they're collecting and what is best to collect. Because we always say, buy what you love, right? So I assume that that's a lot of kind of what you're seeing as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's what I've been seeing in particular is many advanced collectors, people who are dedicating significant amounts of time and resources to collecting. And I guess the questions are different. They're more detailed. They're more extensive. Sam, there's 2 or 3 clients that we spent a significant amount of time working with, giving them guidance, not only for our own auctions, for other auctions. And then that's great to see, because, it's great for the industry that you have these people who are curious, who are interested, who are intelligent, educated, and willing to collect and advance their collections. That's sort of, it's good for everybody, and we're thrilled to work with them.
Right, it's a deeper engagement is what it seems to be happening.
One thing I would say I've gotten fewer questions about in the last year and a half is fewer people asking if what they're buying is a good value. As Chris was saying, they're more interested in the rarity or the historical significance, the numismatic importance, however it might be, but fewer people asking, is this a good value what I'm buying? Where do you think this is going to go up in price in 5 years? Which obviously I can't tell them. And so, I always have to say, I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't give you investment advice, but it's been nice to see people not concerning themselves about that. They're asking about, the stuff you'd expect collectors to ask about.
Mm-hmm.
Is it because of their knowledge about this category has grown extensively, certainly through the work you guys have done? Is it their passion for it? Is there, certainly one thing I've loved about American coins is that I can hold it and I understand the sort of history of this country through the coins. That's one thing I fell in love as soon as I got here, understanding better the stories a coin tells.
Mm-hmm.
I assume that that's something you're seeing as well when World of Nations.
Yeah, I mean, we see that, and we see people sort of, people have a little bit more time these days, and they go in and do their own research, and we help them sort of select. We tend to help them mostly in the technical part of things, and Sam or I will give opinions on individual coins and tell stories about them and put them in perspective in the numismatic market now versus how they were in the past. Like, we like to always look back, and there's always opportunities for people, and collecting really should be a long-term project, and an enjoyable one, and that you do it over time and you learn, and it's part of that. And I think with the relevant information, the amount of information that collectors have these days, particularly through our archives or access to Sam or other professionals, it's tremendous. It's a great door for people to walk in and just start collecting right away with confidence. And if somebody's coming to our auctions to buy their coins, chances are that they're not going to make any significant buying mistakes,
Right.
Because they have guidance, they have information, they can call us, we'll give them our opinion.
You're meant to serve as the guardrail.
That's right. That's exactly right. So
that sort of leads into one of the coins in the A&A auction in particular I wanted to talk about, the 1824 hook neck 8 reals that was in Cape Coral. If Tommy can pull that up on the screen.
Great coin.
That was a fantastic coin, and it sold for $96,000, I think. And what's interesting about it is that if you scroll down on that screen to the previous prices grid, you'll see right there, we sold that exact coin in January 2017 for just under $26,000. So 4.5 years later, it sells for nearly 4 times as much. And we have that right there, so the person bidding knows the history of the coin. We had the pedigree. It was from the D. Moore collection. The D. Moore collection that was sort of a major event back in January 2017. And, they took that and sort of calculated where they wanted to bid from that. But I think it's great that they can clearly make an informed and confident bidding decision on where they want to go with that coin because of that information that's right there for them.
What was the starting bid on that? Do you remember?
Which one?
Here, $7,500 for the hook neck.
Oh yeah, $7,500.
I mean, I assume that kind of takes your breath away when something begins there and ends up there. We certainly see that, obviously, in any number of categories. But when you see that happen, do you then ask yourself, well, how did that happen? What does this mean for this particular coin going forward? Because certainly its value suddenly is dramatically altered.
Yeah, I mean, it's been happening, particularly with these condition rarities, more and more. So we're surprised, and I remember this coin selling. I mean, it's really crazy to think that a hook neck 8 reals from Mexico could sell for nearly $100,000. I mean, this is a coin that it's a great type. Obviously, you don't see them that nice, but they're usually a $2,500 coin, right? Historically. Right. So when you're seeing these things happening, we're pleasantly surprised, but we're not shocked because we're seeing that's where the market is going. And, and it seems to coincide with other categories as well, where condition has become a critical aspect of collecting.
Let's talk about the WTR, because I did want to ask you about the 1866 20 pesos, which I think is another coin that you were also pleasantly surprised by.
Yeah, that was one that, as I mentioned earlier, about eye appeal playing just as important, if not more of a factor than just technical condition. So this 1866 20 peso selling for $40,000 is sort of probably a record for the type. I'm pretty sure that's a world record for this particular type. But it's a beautiful coin, very well struck, very good detail. And so this was graded by PCGS as MS63+. And I bring that up because last August, we sold an MS-64 for $18,000. So, Tommy, if you could go to the next link that I gave you. Yeah, right there. So that was the 64. If you zoom in on, say, the reverse of that coin, you can see the legend at the top of the reverse is very poorly struck. This was, it's technically a 64, but not a particularly attractive.
Same thing with the crown. Same thing with the eagle there in the middle. You see the left wing of the eagle is basically flat versus the right wing. And that's all from strike.
And on the obverse, the beard is missing a lot of the detail of the Maximilian. So compare that. Now switch back to the other lot, the 63 plus that we just sold, and you can see the comparison there. It's much more detailed. Everything is very clear there. Compare that eagle and that legend to the coin we just saw, and it's night and day, which is the more attractive coin. The other one, the 64, that sold for a very strong price, but it was just an unattractive 64. It was technically higher grade. So, and that's one of the reasons why I think this 63 plus sold for such a big premium, is because of that eye appeal. And I think that sort of underscores what we've been saying throughout this conversation, which is that collectors are coming in at an advanced level where they're not going purely by what the holder says, what the grade is, but by looking at the actual coin.
Right.
And it's clear that the market recognized that this was a very attractive coin for the type.
Yeah. But it's interesting because I would have thought, and again, naively speaking, I guess, because this numismatics is not by any stretch anything in which I had any knowledge of any great substance a year and a half ago. But I would have always assumed that that's where you begin. The grade is one thing, but the eye appeal is the thing. Simpson said this to me last year. That's the only thing he ever considered. He wanted the best looking collection of coins. It didn't have to be the rarest. It didn't have to be the highest graded. He wanted you to be dazzled by his coins. And certainly we've seen that over the course of his auctions in the last year and a half. But I would have thought that would have been a thing from the get, that people would have drawn people to the hobby.
It is certain people, I guess. Right. The Cape Coral collector was certainly one that applied that very successfully, and he did it at a time where grading wasn't prevalent, and he did it on his own. So he was very successful with that. But
at the same time, he had dealers that he was working with, because it takes education to learn like what is really nice for the type.
Yeah.
And so the grade and third-party grading definitely lowers the barrier to entry for new collectors.
It takes you 90% there, probably.
90% of the way there, but then it takes time and effort and just seeing a lot of coins to recognize what is genuinely a nice coin for the type.
Yeah, people ask me, why doesn't the computer grade a coin?
It's not an invalid question.
And it's not an invalid question. And the answer is they can probably do 90% of the grading, because the other 10%, which is eye appeal, which is right, maybe it's 20%, I don't know, maybe a little more, is something that is human, right? It's something that is in the human eye, that you see it and it's beautiful because the colors are beautiful, or the strike is so deep that you see that beard just really scratching your fingers and you see that full eagle. That is eye appeal. The grade is sort of more of a technical, it's more scientific, where eye appeal is more artistic. It's the same thing as you were looking at a painting or a piece of art. A computer can look at something and technically grade it, but it's not going to understand. Maybe AI will one day, but it will not understand beauty.
Sure, it's like an umpire calling balls and strikes. Why is a computer not doing it? There's a certain judgment value that's also
and it's part of the game, right? And for us this example is fantastic. It's perfect example to see that people will take the grade as an important factor of their bidding decision, but there are other factors.
Right. So then how do you explain to somebody that a 63 is a better looking coin than the 64?
Just like we did now.
Yeah. I mean, but that seems to me that's where the most difficult part of the conversation.
Right. It takes a lot of nuance to explain that the grade that's assigned to the coin is purely technical, right? It's technically a 64 because it has only so many marks in the fields and this much,
that's what I mean.
rub, that sort of thing. But
there's a real intricate sort of explanation.
But if the planchet was a little bit concave and it was missing part of one side of the strike, that's still technically a mid-stay coin in 64, just like we did. But it's not as attractive and therefore should not be as desirable as one that is perfectly struck. And think, we're talking about 200, 300, 400 years ago. So there's variations, always variation. No coin is just like the other. Like, it's not like now that every quarter that we get is identical to the other one, etc. All these coins are unique in a sense. So, the collectors, and that's what we talk about, the resources that we have online with a fantastic beauty shot image. Now we have, 8 different images for some of these coins. We take NGC's or PCGS's images. We have our own images. It's a very large file that people can zoom in. I use it sometimes when I have the coin in front of me. I'll zoom in on the picture because it just, you see the detail better. So
because this thing is much harder to.
Yeah, I mean, you can put a loop to it, etc., but you lose sort of the whole, the whole blown up image that you can get.
Not quite the same as
right,
blowing up an image.
Correct. So people are comfortable with what we provide and the information, the relevant information we provide with the images plus the grade, and you seeing this explosion with sight unseen. That is, it's sort of the great new engine of the industry now.
All right, so here's a good time to interject with a question from Jesse. There is some opinion that the U.S. market is hot in a few series, but there's a lack of quality coins of sufficient inventory. Is the world coin offerings trending the same way? Is there enough inventory on all levels at the low, medium, and high-end offerings?
I mean, that's hard to answer.
Yeah.
Like, how much is it right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's about it's microeconomics, supply demand, and now what we see is a continuing lack of supply and a continuing increasing demand on the other side. More people coming in, less material available, less coin shows, etc. This is continuing since March of last year. So similarly to what we're seeing in U.S. coins, I mean, U.S. coins rebounded recently, whereas world and ancients we sort of just had been going up and up recently. So
the other thing I would add on to that is that there's just been a restructuring in the market over the last 18 months because of the lack of coin shows and inability to travel. So coins are sort of they're either not going to coin shows to be sold or bought, or they're going to auctions rather than.
Yeah, and of course,
shows.
With the success of the auctions, thankfully, more people are reaching out to us and say, I can't believe these prices,
I wouldn't say there's necessarily fewer coins on the market right now than in past years.
I think auctions are getting a bigger share of those coins.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and also, like, I remind everybody, we do have, I don't know if I'm out of turn, but we do have a platinum night coming up in October, and it's a good time to tell everybody, if you want to ship us some coins, do so by September 10th.
Tell them how to get a hold of you, because I was planning on doing that. So
chrisb@ha.com or sams@ha.com. You can email us at any time. We're very responsive. We have until September 10th to include consignments in our upcoming Signature and Platinum Night event that's happening in October
just before Halloween weekend,
28 and 29,
26th or 27th,
yeah,
something like that.
So
should have the dates written down.
Sure, contact us.
Tommy, do you want to share that question? Then I'm going to let Chris handle from my computer. Here, Chris, you can look at it here. Translate and share with the class.
Okay, so Javier, hola Javier. Javier is saying that it would be great if we would help people who need information, they have good coins, but we do, Javier, we do. Please reach out to us. Si quieres enviar un email para mí, cris@ha.com. I'll be happy to talk to you.
This is, after all, the world and ancient coins. So in any language, one may submit questions.
Oh, sure.
Feel free to do that. Chris will get back to you. So let's talk about the big highlight from the last auction, the Una and the Lion. Because certainly we cannot do that without, we cannot proceed further without asking that.
Yeah, the Una and the Lion is maybe the most common rare coin in the market. We've sold 4 so far this year, something like that. But I mean, the prices just keep going up and up. It's like what we were saying earlier. It's one of those iconic types that everyone wants in their collection. You know, even if you're not a collector of British coins, if you're just a collector of world gold coins or trophy coins or whatever it might be, you know, the Una is sort of what you need in your collection. And the one we had in our auction in August was undoubtedly the finest graded example, the nicest that has been on the market, you know, probably in a generation or more.
At least.
Yeah. And so because of that, it set the record for most expensive example of the type ever sold at 1.44 million, which actually makes it the second most expensive British coin ever sold at auction after the Edward VIII 5-pound that we sold in March as part of the Paramount collection.
I'm always amazed by when the best version of the rarest coin appears at auction.
Yeah, I mean, I thought, to be honest with you, I thought this because we've sold so many, and I keep waiting for the market to be saturated and to the prices to recede. And I thought this was the time, including the conversation that I had with the consignor.
Yeah.
And I told the consignor that I thought that the coin would sell around 750, 800 hammered. So just under. Just based on the previous sales and the number of coins that were coming out, and you know, there were 5s and 4s and other coins that were similar to this one, and
there was a 66 but not star that sold last fall for just about $1 million in Europe.
So I thought we would sort of maintain that level. Now, obviously, again, we were surprised during the sale with many bidders, you know, up to $1 million and then a few over. So that was a great surprise. The consignors obviously very happy about it and telling me how I was wrong, you know, and he knew it was going to sell for more.
Some consignors take great delight in that.
Oh yes, and I do too.
Yeah,
you know, it's
sure.
I'm happy to be wrong. You know, I'm happy to think that things are going to sell for less than what they sell. You know, I'm happily surprised. But fantastic coin. I mean, we had this platinum night. It was very enjoyable. Again, slow sale because we had so much bidding, and I think, you know, the reason that these sales are increasing in size, it has to do with our consignors trusting us and seeing these prices and calling us to have their coins included. So that's great for us.
What was the top ancient in this particular auction?
So the top ancient coin in this auction was the Eidmar denarius, which was on the cover of the catalog as well.
Who doesn't know that coin?
Yeah, that's always a pleasure to handle. And when people, you know, when non-coin collectors come and ask me, you know, what's the coolest coin you've ever handled, or what's, you know, the most special thing that you've handled, or whatever it might, you know, whatever their question is, one of the first coins that comes to mind is the Eidmar denarius, because the story is just so clear and so great. Where on the obverse, you have a head of Brutus, right? Brutus, the assassin of Caesar, his former lieutenant. And on the reverse, you have Eidmar, the Ides of March, 2 daggers, and then a Peleus, which is a liberty cap, which the coin is as clear as day. I, Brutus, killed Caesar on the Ides of March in the name of liberty. I mean, he struck this right after the Ides of March, right after the assassination of Julius Caesar. And it's just a fantastic coin. It's always a pleasure to handle these. It's only the second one that Heritage has ever sold at auction. The last one was September 2011. Before I started working at Heritage, we sold a very nice example then. And, you know, I've handled a couple privately as well, and it's just, you know, as good as they come.
So let me ask you this, as we begin to talk about and think about the October auction, are there coins that the two of you see very seldom like this, are there coins out there that you know are out there that haven't seen market in a while that you know in this particular market would do exceedingly well? Is there a holy grail coin for you at the moment?
That's a
Holy
good
Grail
question.
coin. There's many holy grails.
Yeah, each country sort of has its holy grail.
Yeah, I mean, we
coin.
sold. I would say we sold holy grails from 50 different countries. I
Yeah.
mean, we sold Korean holy grails, Japanese, Vietnamese, Australian,
When I think
English.
about the Eidmar, so this is a story that everybody knows the story of.
Right.
So when you look at that coin, one of the things I love most about numismatics is the fact that most of these coins tell a remarkable story.
Mhm.
Whether it's when it comes to American about Washington, the connections to Washington, the first minting, and so forth. When it comes to this, certainly a story that we learned in literature, a story we just know from history. So are there coins like that are out there that you know that have a significant tale to tell that you are eager to get your hands on?
Yes, that's
Okay.
yeah. There are again, with us having 250 countries
Sure.
spanning 2,500 years, there's holy grails all over the place. This is one of them. Of course, this is a classic one. Another one is
Right.
the Una and the Lion.
Yeah.
Another one is some of the the whiskers, the long whiskers pattern that we showed before. That's a grail for Chinese coins.
Right.
We might have some coming up in the next auction. I mean, this is what we do essentially in our platinum nights is a lot of times selling holy grails of different countries.
Yeah, a good example of that actually that comes to mind is in Paramount. We had, and I think maybe we even talked about it a little bit in the Paramount preview video we did, New Zealand Watangi crown pattern, which sold for maybe $40,000 or something like that. That was the most expensive coin of New Zealand ever sold. That is like the grail of New Zealand, which, compared to all the 6 and 7 figure coins that we handle, you might not really think about it, but that is the holy grail for New Zealand numismatics.
Yeah. We sold a patterned shekel years ago at the Wtr Collection.
Yeah.
That was, the most significant ancient Jewish coin that exists.
Patterned shekel was also my nickname in Hebrew school.
It is.
So I got that going for me.
All right, good.
So talk about the October auction. Obviously, as we said, you're accepting consignments. It is going to be a little bit different this time, in as much as that there will be a platinum night as part of that. So that certainly means holy grails of that ilk may in fact show up in that auction, as you are still accepting consignments for another 9-10 days, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And one thing that we're doing differently in the October auction that I think is worth noting is that we are removing estimates from the signature auction. So
as we see here with some examples.
As we've talked about some examples like that Mexican hook neck that we had estimated, I think $15,000 to $20,000, opened at $7,500. It sold for $96,000.
Right.
So at a certain point, I mean, we've traditionally been very conservative with our estimates.
We always say that they're a starting point in the conversation, but they're not the conversation.
Right. But it may have gotten to the point where it's putting an artificial ceiling. If you see the estimate and it's already at double what the high estimate is or something, like, you might have something holding you back. Should I really go beyond that? And maybe that's because we're too conservative, or maybe because the market's just moving so fast, where if we're estimating coins based on where the market was 6 months ago,
Right.
last time we sold an example or a comparable came into the market, we might already be well out of date for it. So to put that in context, and I ran the numbers yesterday just because I wanted to have some hard data, in 3094, the August Platinum Night and Signature Auction, we sold 1,765 lots. Of those, 1,100 hammered at more than the high estimate for an average of 75% above. So if we had a coin, what that means is if we had a coin estimated $800 to $1,000, by our metrics, on average, it would have hammered at $1,750. So how helpful is that estimate of $800 to $1,000 really, if it's going to be selling for so much more than that? And considering, as we've shown already, and as we always try to bring up in these videos, we have such good previous prices grid on the website. The previous prices grid is far more useful and valuable in terms of giving you bidding guidance than any estimate that we can provide. right? Because we're just looking at the data and sort of interpreting it as well. But if we just give you the hard data and you can interpret it for yourself, I mean, that'll be what determines the final ending price.
Right. Do you think I assume that may result in a few more phone calls for y'all for folks trying to understand kind of what this means, because certainly a previous sold in 2014, which may be the last date a coin sold, that coin is not going to be selling in 2021 for that same amount or anywhere near that based upon what we've seen today.
Yeah, it might mean some more phone calls, and at least in a phone call, we can provide the nuanced conversation that just, X to Y estimate doesn't have as part of it. And we did the same thing a little over a year ago. Last spring, I think it was, we removed estimates and starting bids from our weekly select auctions and just relied on the previous prices grid. And it seems like that was a tremendously successful move. And it follows in the same vein as US coins and comics and a lot of our other categories, where they sort of just put it out, provide information and data to the clients, and let the market determine what it's actually worth.
Starting bids have been $1 for US coins since I've been here. Like, they were already $1 when I came 14 years ago. So we're just catching up now.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the showcases before we wrap it up here. I assume that there are things in the showcases upcoming that you'd like to discuss real quick.
Yeah, the showcase auctions are a venue that we've loved for years. We were actually the first venue at Heritage to have showcase auctions before they were even called showcase auctions, which are single owner, specialized thematic auctions that might not be valuable enough or significant enough to warrant like their own catalog, like we were showing for Cape Coral or the Monaco Collection as part of a signature auction, but we still think they warrant some sort of special presentation. And so we came up with this showcase venue where it's a standalone auction online of this whatever specialized grouping is. So the one that Tommy just had on the screen is the one that's ending soonest, the CAR collection of Central American coins, which is a great example of what the ideal showcase auction is, I think.
And those all came in raw, correct?
Yeah, that was a totally what we would call fresh collection to the market. This was put together, I don't know, probably 30 years ago or something like that. It came into us, we got it all certified, and I think the market is really going to respond to it because we can present it all as is, all the $100 coins to $20,000 coins. Whereas if we were to put it in sort of our typical system of signature, platinum night, select auctions, it would get broken up into different sales and venues.
Right.
And at least this way we can present it all together as one coherent collection.
Is that at the consignor's request? I mean,
It's a conversation with the consignor. Typically, they love the idea.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've ever had a consignor said, no, I don't want to showcase when we propose that to them.
Right. I just assumed that you'd want to have your coins all together. It's a nice sort of point of pride as well.
Correct. Instead of sort of splitting them up in different venues, putting some in Platinum Night here, some in Signature here, you keep it all concise. And it's really given a great channel for specialized buyers to say, like, this collection of Central American Republic has gotten tremendous. It's a very popular series. It's a beautiful design. I mean, it's a sunset. It's always a sunset behind the mountains with a tree on the other side. It's a beautiful, beautiful coins, very popular. So, we're seeing a lot, you get all the attention from those guys, from those collectors that perhaps in a bigger auction gets a little dispersed.
Right.
So that's.
I know the Santa Monica and the Rockport collections are also fresh to markets as well, or at least if I'm not mistaken, the Rockport hasn't been available for several decades.
Yeah, so Santa Monica and Rockport, those are also collections that came to us totally raw before grading was a thing. I don't know when Santa Monica was put together. Rockport, I believe, was put together in the 1980s. And they come to us, again, like these other collections, they have material ranging from $100 to $10,000 or $20,000, maybe even more in some cases. And so we put those together as these standalone showcase auctions. And we don't have that many previews on the website right now because they're still just coming back from NGC. But between now and the end of the year, we probably have half a dozen showcase auctions, maybe more.
And some right in the beginning of the year, too.
Yeah, and more coming up in the beginning of 2022. We're already planned out.
The Long Island collection, there's 3 there.
There's
very
Hong
nice.
Kong an auction in the autumn, right?
Right, the Autumn Hong Kong
Yeah.
showcase auction, which we had our first one this past March or April. We had a close, and that was very successful. Our consigners in Asia appreciated having sort of another Hong Kong venue outside of the signature auctions. So we decided to make it a semi-annual event in the off season when we don't have the Hong Kong signature auctions going on.
Well, gentlemen, we've been here an hour. I always appreciate you doing these. I'm sure everybody
Seems like
watching
10
does as
minutes.
well. I know. Seeing in person, it's a
Right.
lot easier when you're in person. It's just the warm congeniality, the conviviality of it. Thanks to everybody. Again, if you have questions for them, it's CRISB@HA.com or SamS@HA.com. I don't imagine you have questions for me other than why am I here? So thanks for watching. We'll do one of these again sometime soon. Thanks, guys.
All right,
Thank you.